So, this study, I had a picture on YouTube as a thumbnail. I don't know if you've seen it. Just expecting that you haven't. I want you to look at it and try to guess what were the results. I posted it on my Discord since you are both there, but I will also add it here. It's a very sad study, so I wonder if you can guess the numbers. For now, since you since we haven't discussed the strategies, the image will be the study will be discussing the strategy. But anyway, since you haven't we haven't discussed the strategies, it will probably be difficult to try and guess what's up. But so overall, a percent of men, the study was asking men about them. Okay, I will start the sentence again. The study was conducted as an anonymous survey with around 2,700 men, and it was about women they didn't know that didn't want to have sex with them. The question is, after these women, after they got the clear sign that these women did not want to have sex, have you used any of the strategies that they describe to, get sex? So, can you try and guess? Maybe plus, minus, well, it's how we say in Russian, plus minus, so around 10% of accuracy. You are spoiling it. Okay, yes, it is 95. Fine. And let's get to reading. I haven't read the whole study fully, so I will also be finding something new for me. I just, ran my eyes through it, looked a little bit about the discussion, looked a lot at the stat itself, figuring out what can, if it is actually this bleak. Isolate, inebriate, intimidate, repeat. High rates of sexual force against women are reported when young men giving anonymous surveys. Few studies survey men who have remained undetected after engaging in acts of sexual aggression against women. Most survey women who were targets of sexual aggression, or else survey men who consent to being identified. Using an anonymous survey of 2,689 US and Canadian men aged 18-34, so it's a relatively young demographic. We aim to access rates of self-reported sexual aggression, reports of strategy effectiveness at forcing known reluctant women into sex, and men's view of the circumstances, motivations, and positive and negative outcomes. Men reported occasions when they tried to get a woman to engage in sex that they knew she did not want and to which she had not consented. The women were individuals with whom the men shared no prior romantic or sexual history. Overall, 95.1% reported having recently used at least one of the strategies to get a woman to have sex who they knew did not want sex and had not consented. Most of these occasions, 65%, resulted in successfully forcing the woman into sex. All of the 36 strategies generated from formative work were reported by at least some men. The average number ever used, so the average number a man report, the average number a strategy of sexual aggression, of forcing women into sexual content that she did not want to have, was 8.94%. Consistent physical pressure and verbal coercion were common. Overt force, including physical restraint and use of pain, was less common, but not uncommon. Men who viewed themselves as better than same-aged male peers at getting what they want sexually from women used more forceful strategies. The men persisted for many reasons, often because, so these are the reasons they reported for coercing women into having sex. So most often because they were horny, 38%, or because the opportunity arose, 28%. They reported many positive outcomes from these interactions. Most, 70%, perceived no negative outcomes after forcing a sexual interaction on an unwilling woman. Using anonymous survey methods provides a novel channel to capture men's reports of the factors scaffolding their use of sexual aggression. Implications for prevention and making long overdue inroads into reducing rates are discussed. I want you to also pay attention a little bit to, you said it right the second time, scaffolding. Okay, thank you. So, men who viewed themselves as better than same-age male peers at getting what they want sexually for women used more forceful strategies. Now, since this is an incel-focused channel, I want you to think about so-called chads or macho men who are successful, sexually, right? The way their success is often presented to the outsiders is usually that women lay down legs spread, welcoming a chat, right? This survey, judging from the abstract, shows that macho men who are successful, sexual units, I guess, often use aggressive pressure to get what they want from women. So this is not because women were willing to do it. It's because they were giving themselves more grace, so to say, at forcing women into sexual interactions. I mean, maybe this is one of the reasons they get, so to say, a roster of, very temporary sexual partners, because no one stays. Okay, this was an abstract. Every ambient background. So every conclusion might be walked back, at least partially, because I haven't read the whole study. But before we move on, I want to say that one of the strategies, and actually the most popular strategy named, is persistent physical affection towards women who didn't want to have sex. I have to say that unfortunately we can't always tell if a sexual interaction was, forced, if it was coercion actually, or if a woman wanted additional, stimuli at some points, she may be. What I want to say in simpler words, that I have had experience where I was, say, not really in the mood, so for me to agree, a person would need to get me in the mood. And this makes it a little less bleak for me, especially because this is the most common strategy. Spoiler alert. Keeping kissing, hugging, touching. That being said, this is way more, I think, understandable and likely in relationships that have already been formed. Here we are talking about women that the participants don't know. So it's not as likely as I would actually like it to be. Introduction. What is striking about sexual aggression is that despite decades of research, public health initiatives, education, media attention, and policy focus, there has been no this is a third word that is new for me, and we've only on a third, fourth paragraph. Okay, actually on a second. Let's Google it. Discernible. Oh, no, it is not a new word for me, sorry. So despite all the attention, time and resources dedicated to it, there has been no discernible decrease in rates since first assessed in the 1920s and 1990s. Here we have studies from 2015, 1987, and 2022. The most common one was that they taught her whatever she wanted to hear, and it was more effective than gradually pushed verbally or physically until you got what you wanted. They have data from 100 years ago, or I said 18 somewhere. Yeah, that'd be interesting. I think if we had data from 100 years ago, we'd have 100% rate. Though maybe recent would need to be taken out. So, maybe if you will be interested in any more information after we finish reading this article, and if we will have enough time, I guess, we can look at any of these. Acts of sexual aggression include rape, or sexual assault, non-consensual sexual acts obtained through force, threats of force, or incapacitation, such as through alcohol or drugs, as well as sexual coercion, sexual acts obtained through verbal pressure or manipulation. There may be greater willingness and awareness around reporting in recent years, as some have suggested, but national surveys consistently document high rates of sexual aggression. In fact, an analysis of global, regional, and national trends in violence between 1990. Is the sound good, by the way? Do I sound like I'm speaking from underwater? No? In fact, an analysis of global, regional, and national trends in violence between 1990 and 2019 revealed increased sexual violence against women despite significant drops in rates of most other forms of interpersonal violence. I think I should point out that even though you are doing it in an academic educational capacity, you may want to be careful to be saying your sound is just fine. You're talking about the streaming services may be willing to shut it down because of these. It's Twitch after all. Okay, I will reword it then, I guess. Most men report they do not commit acts of sexual aggression. However, have you raped anyone? No, I don't want to say rape. I really don't. Forced sexual contact, maybe. Forced intercourse. So, by the way, in general, the decreased violence against women did not. I think it's important to note that, as a society, we get better in terms of violence, except gendered sexual violence. This is important to note to assess what we, as a civilization, do not pay enough attention to. This is a problem that we sweep under the rug and let it infest. Most men report they do not commit acts of sexual aggression. However, most aggressors are men, and of these, most have never been brought to justice, often because they are part of target social networks. Approximately 5 times more women than men have been forced into sex. So it's not like the study disregards sexual violence against men, of course. It's just multitudes more likely to happen against women. Based on identifiable convenience samples willing to self-report perpetration, rates since age 14 generally range from 8 to 24 depending on the type of sexual aggression assessed. So these are people who want to say, yeah, I assaulted this person, I assaulted this woman, which most people will not want to do, obviously. Most incidents take place in the context of mixed sex socializing of young adults, the age group with the highest rates of aggression. Okay, now reports from men who sexually aggress. Actually, this is the first time I see the word aggress, though it's logical for it to exist. The premise guiding this research is that to finally shift rates of sexual aggression downward, we must focus firmly on understanding perpetrators, rather than focus so strongly on their targets, and recognize more fully that some intentionally and knowingly sexually aggress. Some sexual aggression may result from misunderstanding a partner's interest of communication of consent, and others might be impulsive or isolated cases. However, work with men who report sexually offending and a small body of online research of undetected aggressors make clear that many acts of forced sex in the general population are deliberate, if not planned, goal-oriented, and frequently collaborative. I'm not sure what they mean here. Oh, right, I actually know. This talks about collaborative strategy of sexual coercion too. The process itself can be understood as adapting a shared social script, a social norm for how an event unfolds, that typically involves these elements: identifying, isolating, intimidating, pressuring or overcoming a target who does not want or consent to sex, often within a social context that includes peers aware of what is happening. Yes, so collaborative. The majority of research on sexual aggression is derived from women willing to report or discuss their experiences as targets of sexual aggression. However, targets often are not privy to any or all components of the perpetrator's strategies, especially if they have been drinking or have ingested drugs. Indeed, we know that the vast majority of these crimes are not picked up by official records. Research on perpetrators, although invaluable, is typically derived from studies of incarcerated men in community treatment programs, or convenient samples receiving course credit or monetary compensation, all generating invaluable information but requiring the perpetrators to be identifiable. So, this is not about, the previous studies are not about common men, so to say. Especially considering like incarcerated men in treatment programs are perpetrators who have been identified. So, of course, for them there's less incentive to lie, but I'm not sure about that. But we do not get to hear about common folk, so to say. The study isn't serious. A woman, whatever she wanted to hear is forcing. No, it's coercion. We read an introduction because this will supposedly probably talk about the problems with coercion, why it is identified as sexual aggression, etc. This reminds me of my days working at the resorts and the parties that used to happen there. Vouchered used to go down on those parties, and it wasn't exactly consensual. Yes. There, was this case of a young woman, who was forced into an intercourse by, I think, 7 men who made her record a video saying she consented to it. This is kind of the problem with enforcing sexual aggression laws. You cannot be sure oftentimes if the person has maybe consented but revoked their consent in the process, and the acts was still enforced by the other party, because we do not have any opportunity to track this, and I don't think we will ever be able to have this kind of opportunity. 1 second. I need to visit my friend sink. I find it interesting that some of those surveys found their victims on the red pill. What do you mean, victims? Can you elaborate? I'm not sure. I don't think I understand you. Okay. Where did we stop? Assuring anonymity to study sexual aggression. Anonymous, non-identifiable aggressors, undetected aggressors, have borne far less scrutiny from researchers. Victims, as in the woman they coerced into sex. Yes, because, it's kind of logical that the red pill will be more likely to, participate in sexual aggression, both as a perpetrator, and a victim. And by the way, I don't just mean men on women violence, but also we can see it as women on men, because men are expected to want sex and women are expected to give them sex. This is a culture that breeds sexual coercion as the norm, I would say. Despite the vast literature on sexual aggression, it is disturbing how little we know directly from this group. Collecting reliable and valid data from these men is challenged by sensitization to the wording used to assess sexual aggression and men's concerns about prosecution for revealing histories of sexual aggression. It is important to assure anonymity to collect meaningful data. A study employing focus groups with men found that participants emphasized that anonymity was imperative for those who engaged in sexual aggression to be willing to accurately reveal their behaviors. A landmark What is with my throat? Sorry. What I mean is that from what I understand, some of those men found those women on the red pill. Yes, I understand, and that's why. Or are you talking about this particular study? I'm not sure what your sourcing is. So, I want to mention this study. I guess, yeah, as I said, I only had like cursory look at everything except for specific parts. I would want to say that manipulation, abuse, and other situations with a victim and an aggressor that kind of could be avoided in the best world happen because a victim gives grace to their perpetrator. Like, as humans, when connecting with each other, we must give grace to each other. But, like, if someone steps on your foot, you should probably expect them to step on your foot by an accident rather than intentionally, especially if they are like your friend, your partner, etc. But this is kind of like a person steps on your foot intentionally and pretends they didn't, and you convince yourself that of course they didn't, why would they, and you should trust them. I'd say this is how abusers get their victims, because these victims give them the grace. They are willing to say, well, they didn't mean it, or it's not that bad, Darvo, but you do it with yourself. It's kind of like, Rami, you must remember Celia, right? He would say things that would be far from appropriate, and I did this thing where I gave him grace. I thought, well, he is struggling, he needs more support than other people needed, but what it led to is me enabling these behaviors. And like, while I was, I guess, the focus of these negative behaviors, like, I was the one getting say insults and stuff. Other people were uncomfortable with it too, and other people ended up in DMs. He kind of suggested that he felt a certain way about you even though he would deny it. He also DM'd you. I think he talked privately with more people on the server than I did with. And because, we with each other didn't talk about it, we didn't know what was happening and how severe and uncomfortable all this was. What certain way do you mean? Do you mean romantic, sexual, or negative? I presume sexual. He told me that he thought you had a sexy voice. Well, this is not, a rare comments that I get, so it's understandable to me. What is this emotion? What face? Okay. So we were talking about the importance of anonymity. Yeah, but when he said it, I kinda knew where it was heading. Where? him trying to get your affection. Yeah, he was trying it, kinda. It's upsetting how it was happening and what was happening in his head. I don't know if I should say on the note on which he left our community. So it is important to assure anonymity, to collect data, to, encourage openness, honesty, etc. A study employing focus groups with men found that participants empathized that anonymity was imperative for those who engaged in sexual aggression, to be willing to accurately reveal their behaviors. A landmark meta-analysis of validation studies estimated that 42% of sensitive behaviors are not reported in surveys that do not guarantee anonymity. I kinda want to check up on him or ask him how he's doing, but he probably thinks I abandoned him. Oh, we might have to talk to you about the situation later. But no, please do not reach out. Nothing good will come out of it, that's for sure. I mean, the whole reason that what happened was happening is because, I decided that we can try. Okay, we'll not do thank you. We can try, help him despite giant red flags. That's a whole red flag ship. Sorry. The little existing research ensuring anonymity to undetected sexual aggressors indicates that these men can be persuaded in some contexts to describe their strategies for overcoming a woman's resistance. A seminal study examined first-hand narratives of sexual assaulters who willingly revealed their strategies and justification in response to a now famous topic thread on the forum Ask Reddit. Reddit's had a few threads about sexual assault victims, but are there any Redditors from the other side of the story? What were your motivation? Do you regret it? The question generated 1,200 responses in the first 48 hours alone. The paper analyzed 68 of the users' responses and found strong endorsement of roles that men demand and women grant sexual access. Unfortunately, the data are very limited in scope. The initial thread was removed quickly and is no longer available online or from the researchers. Like all self-reports, it is not possible to verify their veracity. However, the study demonstrated how it is possible to induce men to provide first-hand narratives online, given sufficient guarantees of anonymity. What do you mean? Are you going to sleep? No. Following the lead of the study, the current study evolved from in-depth formative work involving the collection and analysis of online exchanges from men about intentional strategies used for forcing women to have sex. I am going to sleep I'm trying to just, skim through the less related topics. Oh, I see what you were talking about. These exchanges took place with men through a range of popular and dark websites, including off-topics pages on gaming sites that attract a wide range of men, IGN.com, Black Desert Online, sport fan sites, and those that encourage controversial views. The Red Pill, the 21 Convention, I don't know what that is, threads were reviewed and coded by a team consultants to develop and refine a set of items that were incorporated into a survey described below. The current study. The research was designed to focus on men who admit to having intentionally and knowingly sexually assaulted, aggressed against a woman who they knew did not want sex nor consented to it, including strategies to overcome her reluctance, circumstances, motivation, and positive and negative outcomes. We used anonymous self-report methods and asked men to refer to an occasion involving a woman with whom they had no prior intimate or sexual history. Respondents were reassured repeatedly that they would not and could not be identified. We used neutral, non-judgmental language and chose not to use standardized instruments as most incorporate sensitizing language that likely contributes to under self-reporting and defensiveness. If you want to ask a person, did you murder this person? They are not willing to say yes, most likely. We are not interested in, admitting that we commit actions that are seen as universally, I guess, looked down upon, like immoral. However, if we reframe it by describing the behavior instead of applying a term that has a moral value to it, it's more likely to happen. It's like I talked about dehumanization of people in my videos and in the comments on Reddit, and people are not willing to admit that they dehumanize women. However, if you describe the behavior, it fits the term dehumanization. And on one of the occasions, I even had a person say, well, if this is what dehumanization is, then okay, I am dehumanizing women. So yeah, you need to describe the behaviors instead of giving a morally charged wording. Because people do not want to say they are the bad guy. The survey items represented common statements captured from our formative work. The study was designed to assess the following research questions. 1. What proportion of men report a recent use of strategies to force a woman to have sex? Of those who reported trying to force a woman into sex, how effective were those strategies? Are men's ratings of their effectiveness at getting what they want sexually from women associated with their reports of strategy use? H1. We expected that men who Hypothesis 1. We expected that men who perceived themselves as better than their peers in terms of getting what they want sexually from women would report history of using more forceful strategies compared to men who perceive themselves as worse than their peers engage in what they want sexually from women. This kind of ties with me being kind of more comfortable with incels than many other, groups of men online, is that while we talk about incels as a society, we talk about incels feeling entitled to sex, it's more so that I think the society at large has this entitlement to sex baked into our gender norms, and incels kind of find themselves realizing that they do not, get genuine social contact, and they don't feel entitled to using these strategies to enforce their desire to take what they want. So I think it's interesting how we perceive it, and this comes from maybe kind of wishful thinking. The more I interact with, gender wars related communities, the worst things I've seen. Anyway, but I never wanted to be a rapist. Yeah, no one, most people don't want to be rapists, even those who become ones. But yeah, I think there's a difference between a person who sees the other person being reluctant to commit and into sexual romantic acts, and like one person will force their will upon it, try to break it, and the other will be like, well, I guess this is not my right, not my I'm not allowed to do this. And the other person thinks, well, I have the right to push these boundaries. What are the characteristic circumstances, reasons, and perceived positive and negative outcomes reported by men regarding efforts to force a woman into sex? A sample of 311 self-identified men ages 18 to 34, median age 27-31. Interesting. So it's on the older side. Was recruited in the spring of 2023 using an online panel that invited on men who met criteria into the study. The study was described as exploring positive and negative interactions between men and women in sexual situations, so non-judgmental language, not charged. The consent form indicated that the survey was men's opportunity to provide their side of the story, given that we have heard so much from women about male-female sexual interactions, repeatedly assuring them of their guaranteed anonymity. So, like, if you were presented negatively by someone, you can tell us how it was from your side. Now that we read this, I think, again, I'm trying to find the ways in which the conclusion we ended up with here would be less bleak. And this would be, for example, that some men, I think, could be eked out by this noticeable, nod to we don't want you to be villainized. We realize that this survey addressed sensitive information. We realize some people might not like us asking these questions. We want this information to know more about how men operate and how they overcome barriers to get what they want. Nothing you report will be or can be linked back to you. All responses are anonymous. We describe the survey this way to avoid sensitizing language and in an effort to communicate receptivity to men's reports of aggression. Men were eligible if they self-identified as men, were in the age range 18 to 34 and reported having had a sexual encounter with a woman in the past 2 years. Rationale. Men are far more likely to be perpetrators of sexual aggression than are women. These ages correspond with the group with the highest rates of aggression. Okay, so we can also kind of hope that starting like from 35, it might be not so high anymore. We chose a 2-year cutoff window to help ensure recall was clear, even among individuals who do not consistently have sex with women. For example, some sexual minority individuals. During data, so there were possibly gay men who realized they were gay and did not have sex since then. Heteronormativity is terrible pressure. I know a guy who is gay, but he used to have sexual encounters with women, and he almost got a woman pregnant, but in the end I know that he's been like, I doubt they broke up, probably like then years in with his boyfriend. So he's bi? No, it is pressure. He is not bisexual. He just, sometimes you think you want something because you are expected and forced to want it. You end up gaslighting yourself. And this is why many people realize that they are a different sexuality that they thought they were years later. In an old age, sometimes past marriage and 2 kids. I personally have seen a woman online who was married realized that she was a lesbian, and this is kind of, heartbreaking. I heard stories of a guy like that, was flamboyant and femme, but somehow ended up nearly getting a woman pregnant. I don't get it. Do you not get how he almost succeeded, or how he was able to trick himself into thinking he wanted sexual relationships with women, despite presenting in a way that would suggest he is not straight? I don't get why he would get with a woman. Again, the pressure of heteronormativity. You will be unsatisfied with a woman, but you will think that this is a problem with a woman or with you or with the quality of your interactions, rather than it is you not realizing you are not straight. We are very heavily affected by our culture. So, during data conditioning, 322 participants were removed for incomplete, patterned or inconsistent responding, or failing at least 2 of 7 embedded quality assurance attention, for example, attention checks, resulting in a final samples of 2,689. All materials and data are available from the others upon request. Most of them identified as heterosexual, 88%. The majority resided in the United States, 86%. They remained in Canada, the countries from which the majority of which our comparative literature is drawn. Okay, over half identified as white Caucasian or black African American Canadian. They had completed at least a high school education, 37%, or an undergraduate degree, 30%, and 2/3 were working full-time. Of not only 10% were students, thus representing a community sample. Nearly half were in a relationship, most others were single. Okay, I see. So 37 guys were gay. It's 1%, 0.3. Plus prefer not to answer. Other is asexual. Rami, could you pull up the USA and Canada race, or maybe someone else, maybe Munition if you're here, percentages? Though maybe it's not that important. Highest level education as a whole, or maybe just men, or as a whole, not that important probably. The difference shouldn't be too much, right? I mean, except the fact that both countries let indigenous women be killed and disappear and do not do anything about it. Employment status. Most working full-time, in relationship, single, in multiple relationship, 3.4. Measures. Demographic information and relationship status and gender were determined at screening. For remaining background information, participants provided general background information, including use of sexual aggression. We asked, in the past 4 years, how many times have you used any of the following strategies to get or try to get a woman to have some type of sex with you? Sex when she did not want to have sex or acted like she did not want to have sex. Only women you have recently met, no sex or dating history with them beforehand. So note that they again knew very well. They did not misunderstand anything. There is no grace to be given there. Sex was defined as any type of sex, including blowjobs, getting laid, sex, 3 group, etc. They indicated which of any 36 strategies derived from our formative work they used and how often they had used it. For each strategy reported, participants indicated whether they eventually had sex with the woman on that occasion after using the strategy. No, yes, but not the type of sex I wanted. To capture the strategy effectiveness at forcing sex. Perceived self-effectiveness in getting sex from women. They reported whether they perceive themselves as particularly good at getting what you want when it comes to sex compared to other men their age. About the same, definitely better, definitely worse, probably better, probably worse, on a scale ranging from 1 to 5. Circumstances surrounding forced encounter. For participants who reported using one or more strategies in the past 4 years, follow-up questions explored their most recent or most clearly remembered experience using these strategies. Those items focused on characteristics of the woman that made the man target her as a sexual for sex from a list of 8 options. For example, she was hot, the woman's actions or words that communicated non-consistent or unwillingness, even if the man did not believe she was truly reluctant, or if he thought she was faking it, from checklist of 4 items. The context of the experience, reasons for trying to force. I will not be checking. Can you copy the results? I mean, I'm just looking at the other paper, that's why I asked. Procedures. Eligible participants received informed consent form electronically. Took 25 minutes on average. $10 used in compensation. Full approval from Body Ethics Review Board prior. Again, anonymity. Once data collection was complete, all participants' responses were reported. I don't know what. How frequently? This is just technical information, basically. Open-ended responses were analyzed using directed content analysis, which is subjective interpretation of text data through a systematic classification process of coding. Okay. In the process of processing, categories were identified and modified to capture all dimensions. Results. Okay. Use of strategies. Of the final sample, 95.1% reported having recently, so in the past 4 years, I guess, used at least one of the strategies to force or coerce a woman to have sex, addressing our first research question. Those who reported never used any of the strategies did not differ significantly from those who reported on occasion in terms of age, sexual orientation, race or ethnicity, education or relationship status. So, even sexual orientation did not much affect whether they would or would not use the strategies of coercion. Total population was split nearly evenly, with males doesn't matter. Total males. No, I was talking about specifically racial differentiation or ethnicity. The complete list of strategies and frequencies of endorsement are reported in the table. All of the strategies were reported by at least some men. 36 reported using all of the strategies at least once. The average reported number ever used was 8.94. The most common was telling a woman whatever she wanted to hear, and this was used by the majority. Reporting this history, the following strategies were reported in order of frequency. Asked her repeatedly to have sex. Had a friend, partner, or group of friends help you get what you want. Had a female friend make the woman feel safe and convince her. Told her you knew she wanted it. Focused on a stranger to have sex with. Had a female friend bring her to you. And got away from everyone to somewhere private and under your control. These strategies primarily involve sexual coercion in the form of persistent verbal pressure, as well as peers to help manipulate the targeted women. White, approximately 58. Hispanic or Latino, 19%. So I'm just trying to learn the latest and Bill strategy. Yeah, when I was reading this survey, I couldn't help but think how many people will come out of this paper thinking, okay, so this is what the most effective strategy is. Usage of peers is very interesting. Strategies. So, let's look at the strategies. Told her whatever she wanted to hear. 22% never used it. Numerous times, 40%. Eat ended up in 72% of sex in which they got the consent. So this is coercion. Now sex occurred is 24, and other type of sex, which is a non-judgmental wording used for forcing sex. Forced sex is 4%. Then asked her repeatedly. Terrible thing. But like, it makes women feel like it's easier to have sex than not to have it. You will kind of free yourself, like, okay, I'll give you my body and you will be satisfied and you will leave me alone. Never 52%, numerous times 37, in 60% of cases it ended up with sex in which a woman gave up on trying to enforce her decision and her boundaries. Had a friend, partner, or group of friends help you get what you want? Never 54%. Well, 53%. I guess we can expect an increase since the success is 62%. Again, everywhere there's a percent of the word that the platforms might not like, which is forcing sex on an unwilling person. 3, 6, and 5, 6. So let's just look down. Everywhere there is some percent of forcing, depending on what the strategy is. It goes as high as 21% of forcing, but it starts with 4.3. This is the lowest we got for a percent of a person using a strategy, and after it didn't work, still forcing their way onto a woman they knew didn't want. It says forced her to enjoy it. How is that not literally 100%? What do you mean? What is not 100%? Which column? The thing about, like, the morality, I guess, of told her whatever she wanted to hear is because he knew this woman made a decision. She put up a boundary. She had her will, no, I don't want to do this. For the person who used any of the strategies, including something relatively like innocent as told her whatever she wanted to hear, it is that these people, the aggressors, they push against a boundary, against a woman's will. This is why it's coercion. They know she doesn't want it, and they want to take what they want regardless of her will. This is why it is bad, immoral. This is why it's coercion and not, just I guess genuine sex that would be free of moral judgment. You said 20% forced says forced in the strategy name and not 100%. So this is a self-report. Here we see how the perpetrators see their actions, whether they convince themselves that this is a wanted act, that the other person, the victim, was participating willingly or not. So what you get is enforced, right? Like, take advantage of her being asleep or sleepy. Only 11% recognize it as forced sex, and 61% are willing to let themselves believe that. Oh, wait, no. The first one? Oh, no, I was right. So many people are willing to believe that she actually, wanted it. How can you force someone to enjoy it? This is the perpetrator's understanding. There are people who say that women enjoy forced sexual interactions. In Russian, there's a saying, bitch as a female dog. If bitch doesn't want it, the male dog won't start it. Kind of like this. Had a friend had a female friend around to make the woman feel safe and convince her. 63%. At least 39% did it. No, 38. New meaning of the word being woman. Yes, this is, by the way, a strategy that trafficking groups use, because a woman or a child will be more likely to trust a woman, so they do this, pick a woman who will lead to a place where this person will get kidnapped. It's not uncommon. Okay, told her you knew she wanted it. Oh, this was what I counted. Interesting, right? More people use basically social peer pressure to convince a woman to give up. Russians too preoccupied with thoughts of dogs. Well, this is mean. Focused on a stranger to have sex with, or someone who did not know you. I'm not sure what it means, but look, here people are more willing to admit that they forced a person compared to everything else. Had a female friend bring it to you? Here we had a female friend around to make the woman feel safe and convince her, and straight up bring her to you. Hey, go fuck him. Cool. Got her away from everyone to somewhere private and under control. 58% of success. Used by 37.5% of people. It's basically intimidation tactic, because she knows you can do anything to her. But here we have the perpetrators convincing themselves that a woman being in a situation she knows she is helpless in, agreeing to sex. They do not perceive it as sexual aggression. They think it's okay. Used money, age, status, so power dynamic. Again, more likely to admit or more comfortable with sex, forced sex. That's psychopathic. Yes, these are all the reasons, all the things people convince themselves are comfortable. That's why, people online, you will see them say every woman knows a victim of sexual violence, but no man knows a perpetrator. They simply do not identify it as sexual aggression. Gradually pushed verbally or physically until you got what you wanted. I had this happen to me, I would say. Here we see numbers dwindling of those who used it. Now stopped her friends from getting in the way or interfering. So let's have a bro. That's common. You need to understand this is all common, and this survey shows just how common it is for a man to disregard the decisions of women. These all strategies are just more so convincing yourself that you're not going against her wishes. You can help yourself believe that wanted sex occurred. Meanwhile, you just went against her will. So stopping her friends from interfering. What is it? 31%. Well, successful in 33% of cases of the times used. And that means that the friend knew something is going wrong. The friend would protect the person, and they recognized it, and they stopped this from happening. So they knew that what they were doing was going against her wishes. This is the most important part. Everything they do here is securing getting what they want, which is sex, from a woman despite all the obvious other circumstances, including and most importantly her will and her desire. Kept touching and kissing her. Also, like what happened to me, both cases it was unsuccessful, just so you know. I am not that easily pressured, thankfully, but like all of this happened to me. Well, these two other things also happened to me. I can't say I remember all of the things that happened to me in general throughout all my life. So I guess unless I paid special attention to it, this didn't happen. So kept touching and kissing her. Used by 68% of men, 2/3, and 72% of them thought that all this just making the allosexuals look more and more alien to me. What is allosexual? So, as you can see, this is forcing a woman. But, as I said in the beginning, in some cases, like how I describe how it was to me once, it was like I wasn't aroused enough. A person helped me get aroused. So it could also be the case. I don't want it now. Help me want it. Okay, now I want it. I will keep this in mind. But it could also be that a woman gave up resisting. And in these cases, we cannot make sweeping judgments because there are too many factors we need to consider to know whether it was or wasn't coercion. But in most cases, it will be. In most cases, I think the reason women refuse sex is not that they weren't just aroused enough. Allosexual is basically just everyone that's normal and experience regular attraction. I cannot anywhere on the sexual gray spectrum. Are you on a sexual spectrum? Why does it make it weird and alien to you? Okay, started undressing before she was ready, and she kind of felt like, well, now I have to. Kept her drunk high if she was already drunk high. So, this is now straight up R-word. Like, we see that 21% did it. But out of those 21%, 68% thought that a wanted sex occurred. I can't imagine caring about sex to this degree, excluding the power dynamics. Oh no, that's factor for these people too. Like, to the point of forcing people this way. Is this what you mean? Like, everything in the world about power except power is about sex, or was it the opposite? Everything in the world is about sex except sex is about power. Sex is indeed used as a tool in establishing or proving your power. These people wanted to get what they want. They wanted to disregard another person. Sexual act wasn't a priority. Because, like, not just sexual gratification was not as important as forcing the person to do what you want. Focused on a woman who you figured was unlikely to stop you. Here we have also 21%. And 9% recognized that this was unwanted, and 58% think that wanted sex occurred because she couldn't stop them. Got her high and drunk. And here it is again 21%, and 59% think this is wanted because they made her lose her control. Demanded she stopped conning you. 19% taking lack of sex, of interest in sex. Now 13% openly admit that they forced the interaction. Corner her in some way so she could only focus on you. Again, 62% admit. Only 6% here admit out of those who said they did it. Only 6% recognize it as forced sex. This is why it is important when talking about our word, not only to just say the word, but describe the acts, because without describing the acts, we do not encompass all of the acts. And 62% thought it was wanted. At this point, it could not be wanted. Started undressing her. Again, forced, stopped her or tried to stop her. Now the numbers are dwindling, but it's still like 20%, 15%. Focused on a woman who you figured was unlikely to tell anyone if you kept going. So this is like yeah, I can allow myself to disregard what she wants because there will be no consequences for me. And she probably knows it, and they think that like 60% succeeded using this strategy. Out of them, 54% believed this was wanted because she couldn't refuse. Showed her that she was making you angry. Also happened to me, by the way. So 14%, 40% success rate with forced 52. Had her come to your house or apartment when she did not want to. Again, a reminder, this is against her will, all of this. Cornering her. Questioning her sexuality. For example, calling her lesbian or like frigid. Not a common strategy, still 13%, 14% used it. Yelled at her or gave you hell for leading you on. This is already beanities. Homophobia out of nowhere. I mean, these people are very likely to kind of be homophobic. Especially if those are naggers, people who do nagging to nag, they basically put the partner in a situation of, what is the oof comment on? Is it about me almost sounding like I used the word I shouldn't use, or is it about finally being free from work? Yes, that sounded like a bad word, and I had to clarify it. We got to work on your pronunciation of this word. People, the chat thought it was a bullying message. God, I would not use this word, okay? I would not allow myself to use this word. Please do not think I would. To nag. I don't know how it should be pronounced, honestly. Ammunition give me using the word nag pass. So yeah, anyway, if you put a person in a situation okay, no defamation, please. So if you put her in a situation when you force her to make it common, make it habitual to seek for your approval, or if it is a person who is already likely to seek approval, like people who are, let me know if you want a fish to join. So actually you can hop on any moment you want, just let me know. So like all these are basically doing what you think she will dislike, she will be uncomfortable with, and she will want to avoid it. So she will give you an option to do what you want with her. Let her know she would regret it. Take advantage of her being asleep or sleepy. Thankfully, only 11%, which is still very high. It's 11%, and it's in the last 4 years. So some of them might have used it, just not in the last 4 years. And out of all these people, 61% thought it was wanted. I used to know someone that happened to. I am in 21%. Like I was on the other side of this 27%. I never thought that so many of them, right? So besides abusers, aggressors not realizing, not giving themselves the accountability, not being accountable for their aggression, there's also victims very often not understanding that they're victims, and they will blame themselves, thinking, oh, I made them do this to me. Just overpowered her physically from the start. 53% think what happened was wanted sex. This is the mind of an abuser, the mind of a person who commits this act, the most severe act of sexual violence. They think that they can bend a woman's will. Used physical restraint. 65% again thought it was wanted. Like, what you need to understand is how high the rates of wanted. I've heard that a lot of guys just go ahead and choke their partners without asking, thinking they're being kinky, and because they believe that most women secretly enjoy it. This is the result of a culture that says that women do not know what they want, or they are incapable of telling what they want, and this is why this trend of saying that women do not say the truth about interactions is so scary, because this is a result of a culture telling men that women don't know what they want, don't know what they like, and when they do sell it, it's often a lie. I need to close the windows so the hot air doesn't, kill me. So give me a moment. I have returned. 1 second. I changed my place. Should we have a call with fish? Yay! Sam, thanks, Sammy. I just need to now learn how to possibly get the money out of it. How long are you planning to stream? I want to finish this and then I will do my studying probably, or go to gym, but this is unlikely. Discord or Telegram. Oh, we have a base Telegram channel now. No, we don't. I mean, I just have fish on Telegram. 5 minutes, please. Okay. So, I want to start a based Twitter instead, because apparently it's good for hot takes getting attention, and I need attention. I hate it so much. Maybe I do need to live with my mother a little, because her windows face the north side and it's never warm except for Venice. It gets attention from Twitter users. That is the worst kind of attention that could exist. Yes, but attention is money, and what I really need is money. I've been in the worst incels subreddit. I can handle the negativity. Honestly, my times on Twitter back before the war started were insane. But I got some tweets that got like 1,000 retweets. So, well, not 1,000, 5,000. I got a few. Okay. Up. Fish is calling. 1 second. Hi. Wait a second. I will add the sound. Or maybe I say something and let people know. People will know if they will hear you.
Hello, I am a fish. I am specifically a pufferfish. I swim across the ocean, and I puff up when I feel threatened.
My justice, do tell if you hear fish. What if I need to add?
I'm a very fishy fish.
Or you can open the stream and check. Actually, can you turn
I
the
can
fish
turn
up?
myself up as well.
Yeah, you should.
Right. Do I sound better now?
Yes, but maybe even more.
Okay. Let's do it. Oh wait.
You turn yourself down.
It's automatically changing from sometime.
Great. Now it was good.
Okay, hopefully it stays this way. Hopefully it stays this high.
Yeah. I can hear
That's
him
changing.
glub glub. Rami doesn't have an installed translator, so he only hears glub glub.
Glob, glop, 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 glop.
Gulp.
Uh,
Do you have something you already want to say?
no, I'm catching up actually. What's the last point?
We stopped at physical restraint.
Okay. What's the point for it?
What's what?
The point for it? Physical restraint.
All of it is to... By the way, before we proceed, do you still have the stream open? I would appreciate if you did. Just turn off the sound on the top.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Now, so we are talking about a study that anonymously surveyed 2,800 men from the USA and Canada on sexual coercion without using charged language, so it doesn't register for them as sexual coercion. Let's be reminded about the tabs. So, strategy. The first three is frequency of use, number and percent. Never, once or twice, numerous times. And the last three are no sex secured, wanted sex secured, and other type of sex, which is what basically means you recognize it was a forced sexual interactions, but you do not, but the study does not use this word, so you're not afraid to say it.
Okay. So this is like manipulation tactics?
Sexual coercion, which is, the background is that the situation they ask about is in which the participants knew that the woman they were interacting with did not want to have sex with them. And these are all the strategies they use to push past her unwillingness.
Yeah. There was this one video recently, well, actually it was a while back, where Andrew Tate talked about how he got women to work for him.
And how it was?
I feel like... What was it?
How did he do it?
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, the first he had sex with the women, and then after that he felt like he had control over it, and he made the OnlyFans account for them, I believe. So he like basically made the account for them and then got like the money from it, from my understanding.
Well, yeah, it's common for red pillars, as we've seen in the Inside the Manosphere documentary, to manage women with OnlyFans. You are getting quiet again. Is there a setting that makes it automatic?
I turned it off. Let's see. That's annoying. Why would it do that?
My user volume for you is on max.
Yeah, it keeps lowering it for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Fish is
Like
American?
right now it should be good.
Fish, are you American?
Yeah, I'm from the US.
Do you have an accent of your area?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, to me it sounds like American, but I used to not notice accents in my language, regional accents, before I was kind of noted. Hell yeah. No, you need to say yeehaw. Are you a fish fan? He's pretty neutral.
This is a good video to watch, Jester, about this topic.
We should we should finish this study though, and I think it will be it for today's stream.
So where in the study are we at?
Oh, where are we in the study? We moved to most forceful strategies, and after that this will be a long summary discussion, and that's it. I saw a Russian girl today who made a TikTok in Georgian. I think you noticed her accent is in Georgian. Mm-hmm. Used some physical force to create some pain.
Yeah.
So this, again, numbers for how many people used the strategy is dwindling. The thing is, they do not recognize it as not having, they do not recognize it as having forced sexual interaction upon a woman.
That's interesting.
Yes, so the highest number of successful sexual interactions, so what they consider as wanted sex occur, is kept touching and kissing her and tell her whatever she wanted to hear. Again, while there is, while some of these strategies might seem unserious, it shows the mind of the perpetrator, because the main point is that whether this was used on women that men recognize are unwilling and non-consenting. So while a strategy might seem innocent, like told her whatever she wanted to hear, used by 78% of men
Yeah.
here. And while it may seem like wanted sex occurred, and maybe some of this was wanted, the mindset was still to overcome what a woman wanted, desired, and decided. I will send you the link to the article so you can look it up.
Yes, please.
I actually sent it 2 weeks ago.
I have a lot on my plate right now. Alright.
Well, that's true. Okay. Continuing.
So, the main question I have, right? So
Mhm.
when they say they use what they had to say what they needed to get sex, right?
They
What
used
does
what?
that actually mean? So they told her what she wanted to hear, right?
What would that mean? It's like, will you, for example, will you go slow? Or will you use a form of protection? Or will you, like, is it just a quickie, well, not quickie, but a one-time interaction, or will it be a step towards relationships? A lot of stuff can be told. Or, have you checked if you have any STDs, sexually transmitted diseases? Yeah.
So I get that these are ones that we can make out, right? But what is like the study referring to? Is this like a generic one, or
What do you mean generic one?
what is considered sufficient to sexually coerce someone through telling them what they want to hear? Like, if you agree with their political ideology, is that like an example of that?
Well, you see, what's important is that a woman did not want to have sex. So the point is not in the words. The point is in the situation. I think what you thinking about, like, for example, a woman and a man meet on the dating app. A man lies about his political views, and then they start like interacting, go on a date, and whether she would go on a date and therefore have sex with him was relying on like his political views. But the situation is a woman said no, or a woman showed she doesn't want to have sex, and he is just yapping whatever. The point isn't in what is being said, but in the intention of pushing past, going against a woman's will. So, like, even if for her the line was drawn on whether he eats gummy bears or not, this is a still predatory action, because it is the whole point is going against her will.
Give me 10 seconds and I'll fix my audio.
Okay. Now, first forced her to enjoy it. Wanted.
My audio should be fixed now.
Hey, so we moved to some of the most interesting parts, which is forced a woman to enjoy sexual interaction, and it 21% of men who said they did it. This was against her will, so they are willing to admit it. And in 52%, they think the sex was wanted because he forced her to enjoy it. Again, a mind of perpetrator. She wanted.
You guys, 79 or 52%. 79 or 52%. Is that correct?
Yes, 79 people, because only 91 men said, not 91, sorry, it's actually 244 men. 9% of men admitted to doing this. Half of them said yes, she wanted it, and some of them said she didn't want. Your window is going off screen.
Yeah, that's what's the message I didn't tell you in the stream. It seems like I can't see the numbers you're pointing at right now.
Sorry. Okay. This is the one. You're right. Used drugs to help bend her will. Again, 57. Note that the rates of the sex not occurring are not that small, so women sometimes, quite often, even successfully resist. Well, not quite often, okay. But this still happens. There are many those who were unable to protect themselves from a man going against their will. Threaten to hurt yourself or to hurt her, to hurt yourself.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Is it crazy because you think a person wouldn't do it, or is it crazy because you find this illogical?
Well, it's logical because typically I'd imagine it works. In fact, one of my cousin's girlfriends did this, right? So, yeah.
Okay. And then the last one. Used something, even a weapon, to frighten her. It's 5 and 5% who said they did it, but out of them, 67% believed that the sex that happened was wanted. In a situation when he threatened her with something, including possibly a weapon. Again, this is a mind of a perpetrator. they allow themselves to believe that she wants it, because there is no respect to her expression of her will. And of course, the most violent are the most likely to commit acts of the most severe sexual assault that they admit. Respondents could endorse as many as they had used prompt strategies. Prompt referred to when a woman did not want to have sex with you or was under influence or alcohol in 4 years prior. So there is a 4 years period. What happened before it was not a part. So again, we don't know if the 5% of men who did not report to do this have never done this. They just haven't done this in the last 4 years. Less common but not uncommon were more overt forms of physical violence. Age and total number of strategies reported were significantly correlated, indicating that older respondents reported more strategies used. Those who reported being white Caucasian had higher mean score of strategies ever used compared to those who did not identify as white or Caucasian, which I think is very interesting. Those with higher education reported more strategies than those with less education. Single men reported fewer strategies than did men in relationships at the time of the study. So I think, considering that manipulation in sexual life probably correlates with manipulation outside of sexual life, I think we can say that manipulating women probably is related to being in relationships. Men rated the use of those strategies as being effective, successful at getting sex they wanted, in forcing women into having sex on 64.6 of the occasions which they used, kept touching and kissing women despite her known unwillingness and lack of consent, was rated as most effective in terms of getting sex, followed by telling her whatever she wanted to hear, using physical restraint and having a female friend bring her to him or help in some way. Getting her drunk or high when she was not drunk or high was also rated as one of the most effective strategies.
Question.
Yes?
Let's say I get like a friend that happens to be a girl, and I ask her to help me find a girlfriend or something, right? Would you consider that a form of coercion, or
I
what that look like?
remind you, what is the situation of the study, or are you asking in reference to the study or in general?
I'm asking you.
No, of
Just
course
like
not. It
overall.
is utilizing networking.
Okay. So let's say you use networking to get women to have a higher rate of sex with you. At that point, is it?
Here we are talking about men who know that a woman is unwilling. when a woman is unwilling or unconsenting and something is used to override her decision, this is coercion.
Yeah, so it's like popularity can be one, right? Or like if you're favored by other women and they tell her how great you are or whatever, right? Maybe initially they wouldn't want to have sex with you, but using that information, maybe they would be more likely to.
I mean, everything has some sort of connection on everything. Like, if a person likes the same color as you, if you are very, interested in this color, you might also be more open to this person. The question is about whether you respect her decision or not, whether her will is something to respect or something, or just an obstacle to getting what you want, which is the situation we are talking about in regards to this study. Men with a history of forcing a woman into sex tended to view themselves on the whole as being as good, probably better, or definitely better than other men at their age at getting what they wanted when it comes to sex. So, predators showed that they consider themselves successful. And while you weren't here, I think I talked about how we have those macho men who are perceived as being successful in acquiring sex, those chads. And what we see here is those chads are probably just using coercion. It's not that they are as wanted as the peeled communities would want us believe.
Yeah, and that can be explored more in the Andrew Tate video. We can watch it next time.
I will watch it maybe next week. Or if you are American and start counting days on Sunday, then it would be this week, but also for you is kind of considered still.
Yeah, I think it's like 1-to-1 with that, basically. Because it's like the perfect example of it.
What do you mean?
Because he's using coercion to get what he wants, right?
Yes, okay, yeah. And this is why we can see women, I think, victims in general, blaming themselves. Like, because, well, I wasn't forced, I had a choice, but you were manipulated. Our scale those with higher self ratings reported more success in forcing sex and reported histories of using more strategies overall compared to men with lower rating of perceived effectiveness at getting the sex they want. I mentioned in the beginning that this kind of adds to me being more friendlier, I guess, to incels than to red pill, right? Because there is a level of respecting a will of the other person, at least in personal interactions, that macho man will not show, will not have. Our scale development work generated two viable measures one was a 12-item measure of the most overtly forceful strategies, and one of socially coercive strategies, 4 items. The mean number of forceful strategies used across all men was 1.29. Of particular importance, the model number of why am I saying it like this? The model number of forceful strategies used was 0, with 62.6% of men reporting none. So forceful strategies are like assume threatening, inflicting pain, restraining, forcing to enjoy. So at least 63% preferred more subtle ways of aggression. However, another 15 and 7% of the participants reported using one of these forceful strategies. All others, 21 and 7, reported using at least 2 or more forceful strategies. Oh god, that means 36% of men, which is more than 1/3, reported using force to get sex within the last 4 years. That, again, returning to every woman knows someone who is a victim of sexual crime, but no man knows a perpetrator. As we see here, these are more than 1/3 of forceful perpetrations, like obvious, severe acts of sexual violence. This is extremely sad. I wanted to believe that way less men would be perpetrators in general, but here we see that even if we specifically talk about forceful aggression, forceful sex, it's higher than what I wanted to expect. God.
Okay, so for the forceful, that's like physical, right?
Yes. 4 items, it says. Oh my god, it's only 4. So it must be hurting. Okay. Oh, it's here. Let's look at this. 1 second, I will check. Self-development using strategies. Here, 12 forceful strategies that men reported using, including physical force to create some pain, used drugs and threatened to hurt women. This is not the 4 items. Here, what is considered forceful? Used your money, age, or status? No, this is a different one. Wait a second. Factor 1, forceful. Threatened to hurt her, used some physical force to create pain, restrained, took advantage of her being asleep or sleepy. So all of these would be the most severe act of sexual violence. Just overpowered her physically, drugged her, let her know you would embarrass her in some way or shame if she didn't. That would be blackmailing. Showed her that she was making you angry, yelled at her, questioned her sexuality. Okay, this would be a different one.
Okay, that's kind of going outside forceful though, right?
Yeah, this counts as forceful. But there's a point to neutralize coefficients for two terms are shown in table 1. The most extreme 4 we can judge by the numbers, I guess, and that would be no, I am not sure. Okay, let's continue. Oh, right. One 12 item measure of the most overtly forceful and 4 of social strategies. So the social strategies are use the friend, use the female friend, use the money, status, age, and another one with used a female friend to bring her to you. This kind of stuff.
Using a female friend. What does that mean in this context?
Which one?
You're saying bring a female friend? Have a female friend bring her to you? Right?
Yes. So
What is it?
we have had a friend, partner, or group of friends help you get what you want. Had a female friend bring her to you is, I mean, this is not something we could probably look at it in other data, but it's like, imagine you're at a party and you are in a room wanting to have sex with a woman who you know doesn't want to have sex with you. So you like ask a female friend, a woman, hey, please get this girl here so she knows I'm fine to have sex with her, so that she sees I have your approval. Had a female friend around to make the woman feel safe or convince her. So this one would be like the most innocent, to feel safe. So that means she probably didn't feel safe with this person. The mean number of forceful strategies across all men was 1.3 for particular This is what we read. Rates of coercive strategies were higher, with the mean amongst all men being 161. 34% of the sample reported not using any of the four coercive strategies assessed. Of those who reported at least one, the mean was 25 of the 4 strategies assessed with using these sub-skills. We are talking about social strategies, peer pressure, rating of how much better or worse each man perceived himself at getting what you want when it comes to sex relative to other men their age, were significantly correlated with number of forceful strategies reported and use of coercive strategies, providing support for our hypothesis. That is, the higher men's self-rating of their ability to get what they want sexually from women, the more forceful and the more coercive strategies they tend to report. They think they get it, so they do it. Circumstances, motivations, intentions, and perceived outcomes. Our fourth research question focused on social and psychological components of interactions whereby men use force to make an unwilling woman have sex. Men knew that the woman was unwilling and not consenting through her making excuses, 32%, directly saying she was not interested or did not want to, 24%, so just saying no doesn't work, and physically moving away, trying to be out of reach. Men also responded that in some circumstances women were too drunk or high to say or do much of anything, so couldn't refuse. This is the R word. They had met the woman on a dating app or website, 10%, on another form of social media or online platform, a private place, indoor public space, outdoor public space, social event less than 5 people, 8%, social event with lots of people, some known, this is 28%, or social event with lots of people, unknown, 31%. They met mostly in the early evening, later in the evening, and rarely in the morning. Almost always there were peers or others around during the interactions, in 80%. I got a message possibly. Did not get a message, okay. Where did we stop? In reporting about the most recent and memorably vivid experience of efforts to force a woman to have sex, most men reported that finding the woman attractive, quote-unquote hot, was the primary reason they targeted her. 78.4%. So they want the prize, they target the prize. Hi Rami, did you lose us? Did we lose you? Followed by having noticed her before, feeling lonely and wanting intimacy or touch, or being drunk or high, 20%, 21%. Less common were the remaining reasons, including that the woman was notably drunk or high, so specifically targeting a woman that is incapacitated. The man was horny, aroused, thinking it would be easy or fun, or being angry at her, so 2% did it because they were angry at a woman. This is important.
That's surprising.
surprising to you? Oh, just saying hi. Oh, I didn't know Ayuna joined. Hi, Ayuna. Um, I don't see it in my chat for some reason.
Okay. So how do you feel reading these numbers?
Very, very disappointed, heartbroken. Rare for me to catch a Sunday morning stream. Yeah, we haven't actually had for 2 weeks or for 3 weeks, because I felt like I was not in full capacity intellectually, I would say. So, yeah, these numbers upset me because they are worse than I could imagine. The men targeted these women most often because they were horny and simply because the opportunity was there. So they could, so they did. And this is talking about what a woman wants, about overcoming her desire, pushing away the obstacle of her will, being really determined to get what they wanted, 19%. Note, believing that women con men about their interest, 18%. This is all. Here is your red pill, black pill shit. We live in a culture when women's words are not taken seriously, and this leads to sexual coercion and acts of sexual violence. They indicated their efforts to force sex were typically unplanned or used if opportunity arose, versus a deliberate plan. So 15% had a deliberate plan to force a woman to have sex. Received outcomes. When asked to explain whether anything good came out of this interaction, the most common positive outcome was coded as a relationship related. This captured responses such as friendship, friends with benefits, long-term relationship, short-term relationship, and other forms of romantic connection. So, while it is a relatively low number, except for friendship, which is 1/3 of those who commented, who said the outcomes were relationship related. This is a situation in which it is so normalized to disregard a woman's will in decision that it does not register as, problematic, and does not become much of an obstacle in relationship. The next most common code was for sex-related responses, including sex in general or specific types of sexual acts. So this also included forcing women into a sexual act she did not want. The third most common code captured experimental responses, including that the interactions was notably fun, a good time, interesting, or memorable. Again, doing something to a woman against her will, knowing that she does not want it. Personal outcomes such as learning, self-congratulations, and winning were less common overall. 8 responses appear to blame women, blame the women in some way. Some women only want to have sex if they are drunk or high enough. Another, 377 did not elaborate on their yes response about positive outcomes. 14 said, I got what I want, so yes, the positive outcome of forcing a woman into sex, and 379 indicated no positive outcomes but did not elaborate. Now, the cool part. Men's responses when asked whether anything bad came out of the interactions were, again, they forced a woman or coerced or manipulated a woman into having a sexual interaction she did not want to have, and they knew it, were primarily no with no elaboration. 1900 out of 2700. The minority who elaborated indicated relationship impacts, such as hurt feelings, less trust, friend group broken, ghosting, lost friendship, direct emotional impacts for themselves, guilt, shame, loss of self-esteem, regrets, embarrassment. 74 men who coerced women or forced women into having sex out of 2700 men. Also, bad sexual outcomes, horrible sex, shallow sex. Wow. Just 7 indicated that a negative outcome was that the woman was traumatized. 7 out of 27,000 men. Wait, I say 27,000 men were forced, but it's only 95% of them. I should actually calculate how many of them it is. 1 second. So 2,565 men out of them. No, it's approximate for me, but anyway. One second, I will recheck. Okay, 2,520 or 2,550 men reported committing coercion, sexual coercion, and out of them only 7 indicated that the problem was that woman was traumatized. Only 1 indicated that someone intervened to stop them, and just 3 of the 254 men reported an incident cited having to face rape accusations or charges. These are those who reported something bad happened. 2,256 So what we have is 2,550 men who committed or forced women into sexual acts, including using violence, and out of them only 3 are reported having a charge. 0.1%. Isn't this fucking horrible and heartbreaking and devastating? People talk a lot about false reports, but any of the forced sexual interactions on any of the items will be hundreds of times higher than the number of those who faced forced rape accusation or charges. So yes, men, unfortunately, on a much higher scale than I expected, commit sexual violence and get away with it. Discussion. This is one of the first studies, to our knowledge, to directly survey men anonymously about recent attempts, again, I remind you, this is in the last 4 years, to force an unwilling and non-consenting, I want to keep reminding it, women to have sex. Our aim was to advance work in this area by gathering men's perspectives regarding the studies they used to enact sexual aggression against a woman with whom they had no established intimate or sexual history. Our reassurances of anonymity likely proved essential as 95% of the 2,689 men reported at least one effort to force such a woman into sex that they knew she did not want. In approximately 2/3 of those occasions, the men were successful in forcing sex. The study indicates that efforts to force women into sex are common and, in fact, far better correspond to the high rates of forced sex that women report experiencing at the hands of men. With all self-reports, it is not possible to confirm the veracity of these reports, although each one of the men's surveys passed all of our embedded quality assurance tests. I remind you that actually more than 3,000 responses were received. There were those who were disregarded because they didn't have quality assurance, didn't pass. Moreover, there are patterns of responses that add to our confidence in their veracity. For instance, our sample was far more likely to report more socially condoned forms of pressure and manipulation, such as being touched in a sexual manner without consent, than they were to report force or illegal activities, such as holding her down or having the woman ingest drugs to incapacitate her. Research over the years has consistently noted patterns of more coercive and manipulative forms, including verbal pressure and cornering or preventing a woman from leaving, are far more common than an overt force. The men varied in their ratings of how effective their use of strategy was. but overall 2/3 of these efforts were viewed as successful in resulting in some type of sex from women. Men were asked to recall a recent or vivid occasion when they tried to get sex from that a woman did not want. This instruction may have biased recall towards occasions resulting in sex. Of note, the men reported on occasions of trying. I want to highlight this. So, the cases in which men used these tactics and did not did not get sex may have been just forgotten. Like, for example, in those who said they did not use them at all, but we cannot. We just need to remember we have this blind spot. Of note, the men reported on occasions trying to force a woman with whom they had no romantic of sexual connection before. These scenarios then likely involve dynamics quite different from those captured in research on intimate partner violence, such as familiarity with and anticipation of a partner's level of interest and or likely response. Another novel finding is that men typically rated themselves as good as or frequently better than most men their age in getting what they wanted sexually from women. Who most than okay. Men just in general rated themselves as being normal or good at getting what they want from women. Men may have been primed to think of scenarios that worked out in their view by our prompt to think of a particular recent or vivid occasion. On the other hand, they were asked to provide self-ratings in general, a self-enhancing bias whereby we perceive ourselves as better than most same-age peers at various tasks or abilities is well known in the psychological literature. Usually this cognitive bias emerges regarding socially supported, morally sound, or agentic traits in which individuals evaluate themselves in ways that are favorable to boost one's self-image, which is why they do not want to admit to committing to these acts if you use words like sexual coercion, sexual assault, etc. That we saw a pattern emerge to view oneself as better than peers with regard to getting what one wants sexually from women provides support that for some men the act of dismissing a woman's lack of consent, her clear communication that she did not or could not consent to sex, the illegal activity of victimizing women in this way incurs social status or supports the perceptions of oneself as superior to one's male peers in this regard. It is possible that young men are reflecting a socialization process that can be understood as adapting a traditional male script, a shared norm for how an event unfolds that involves identifying, isolating, and overcoming women regardless of their interest, willingness, or consent to the sex that men seek, but often with the encouragement of supportive peers. Historically, men talk of sex in terms of chasing, scoring, nailing, banging, aggressive and adversarial terms still common today in toxic bro culture, where women are penalized socially for sexual appearance, behavior, or availability. Men, by contrast, tend to be admired, a double standard that remains highly salient in current popular social media content. Links between such views and perpetration are well known. A recent study of young people 16 to 20 years found that higher sexualized media consumption was linked to stronger endorsement of the sexual double standards among boys, which were linked to higher odds of sexual coercion perpetration. Seduction scripts that glorify the overcoming of a girl's or woman's sexual resistance often refer to positive relational outcomes or the girl's or woman's pleasure that result, yet still start from the point of unintentional decision that to disregard her communication of unwillingness or non-consent. Another surprising finding was how common female peers appear to facilitate these men in their efforts to force sex with women. Male peers help in blocking interference or participating in group assault of women are found in other work. To our knowledge, this is one of the first to document notable number to report female peers' complicity in acts of sexual aggression. To be fair, we do not know that the women knowingly aided in these crimes against other women. However, it may be that these reports provide initial insights into potential sexism that punishes women for attracting sexual attention or operates as a form of bullying to reinforce power discrepancies or social hierarchies. Additional research on collusion is clearly needed and certainly replication of this work. Yes, I really want this to be replicated. I would hope that this study got a lot of things wrong, because if it didn't, it is very, very bleak. Another limitation is that the sample included mostly white, Caucasian, or Black African origin individuals, and as such is limited in how well we can generalize to other racial ethnic groups. The sample tended to be fairly well educated, at least high school education and employed, so we did not sufficiently sample across socio-economic positions. We used a platform for surveying to help ensure more convenient sampling. Although these limitations introduce caution when interpreting the work. Replication of this work with more diverse samples will hopefully elucidate the important variations in reports. Undoubtedly, different results would emerge in more diverse groups. We studied occasions whereby the men had no prior history with the women they targeted. Similar anonymous survey methods could be incorporated into studies of intimate partner violence. The results are also constrained by the cultural context in which they were collected. Other cultures, including non-English speaking individuals, were not included in the initial investigation. Ultimately, we know that sexual aggression of women by men is a global phenomenon affecting directly and indirectly half the population, but the expression of such violence likely varies in ways we have not captured sufficiently here. Shall we? Yes, I should finish. Future research should also adopt different terminology to explore strategies to force sex. We asked men to estimate how many times they had ever used some type of strategy to get a woman to have sex when she did not seem or did not act willing. However, the research is clear that different terms generate different rates. For example, a recent comparison found that men who responded to questions about whether they make her produced higher self reported rates of coercive sex than did items worded in terms of without her consent when she didn't want to. For those working to prevent sexual aggression, our findings suggest that men's effort to force women into sex are far more common than previously captured via self-reports, and in fact help to resolve discrepancy with women's higher rates of reporting being forced into sex relative to men's rates of forcing sex. Such information can serve to reveal specific contexts or individuals who are likely to be perpetuating these crimes and provide more accurate information about the contexts in which an individual may be targeted. Clearly, mixed sex social interactions appear rife with risk for sexual aggression. Replication of these findings using different assessment tools anonymously applied is clearly needed with more diverse groups. In conclusion, the extremely high self-reports of recent efforts to force women into sex were captured using anonymous surveys. Men reported that their efforts were typically effective, and most men perceived themselves as particularly good at getting sex from women. Anonymous survey method appear promising, if not invaluable, for providing novel insights from men themselves about the strategies they chose, motivations, circumstances, and perceived consequences in the sexual aggression of women's sex. Most importantly, these insights will prove useful for making long overdue inroads into curtailing and the deeply disturbed increases noted in these crimes. Okay? This is it. Do you have anything you want to add, Fish? Want ask maybe? Does anyone else have?
What's the main takeaway? Like, do you feel like this is hopeless, or what do you think is the solution here?
The solution is to stop perpetuating the idea that women do not have sufficient autonomy to voice their desires, wants, and decisions. A part of those actually stems, well, not stems, but is perpetuated by all the pew discussions, all this, trying to predict what woman says, constantly disregarding a woman's agency. This is one thing. The other is we do not have enough education on what sexual violence and sexual aggression is. People really don't understand what's wrong with forcing a woman into a sexual interaction, even if she obviously doesn't want to.
Okay. What was the overall success rate?
Overall success rate?
Quote unquote success. Quote unquote success rate. Like, obviously it's not good. Okay? What was like the success rate for?
2/3.
Okay. Do you think that perpetuates the cycle?
The fact that they succeed?
Yeah.
I think what perpetuates the cycle is lack of consequences.
Okay.
And
So
also lack of empathy towards women they disregard. Continue.
So, let's say you have a magic wand right now. You think this is like an education issue for the most part?
Yeah, I guess if you can educate men to understand that a woman's no is no, because it's true that a lot of them don't recognize that women are not, aren't going to give out sex for doing something certain.
Okay.
While Fish is thinking, does anyone else have questions, maybe? If there is someone with us. So there was recently a situation, a post on Purple Pill debate subreddit where a guy said that women say that they would prefer relationship to develop from romance rather than wanting to be cold approached, and on the other side there was that women complain about their male friends who admit they have feelings, and the poster's outlook is that a women are not happy with being cold approached, but they also aren't happy when they are approached by a friend in a romantic fashion. So, like, how do you approach them? The problem is not how do you approach them. The problem is that you cannot get a strategy that will successfully give you relationship or sex with a woman. And the response from him is, if you're unattractive to her, she's going to get offended anyway. Might as well let her know that you were there to fuck her from the go. I guess I agree, and it won't be taken with grace, because there is no situation here where this would be taken with grace at all. This is just not a good person thing, I think. If you can't, I guess, pack it well. And also, like, if you're not attractive to her, she won't date you anyway. Yes, that's the whole point. of dating, you date someone you're attracted to, not someone who followed some kind of script correctly. I remember taking no as a definitive no back in the days when men and boys were still encouraged to chase the girl, but of course it was because they figured I was too ugly for them. No, you did a good thing back then, and I'm sorry that it resulted in this way. The only surefire strategy: be attractive, don't be unattractive. I disagree. Again, as we saw here, that people who think they are more successful at getting into sexual interactions they want are the ones who force more. So the interactions, the sexual interactions, the sexually successful men might just be predators. Just predators who didn't get caught. Anyone else is interested in anything to discuss about it?
I think it's more than just an education thing. If you look at the motives, right, what were the main motives and percentages?
What are the main motives? Okay. So, from the additional document that was attached to the survey, men's reasons for persisting in efforts to force women into sex in order of frequency: just horny, 38%. Just an opportunity that arose and I went for it, 28%. Really determined to get what I wanted, 20%. Women often lack of interest. Women often fake lack of interest in sex. It's a con, 18%. I can't read women's signals, 14%. Very interesting, considering the study was about forcing an unwilling or non-consenting women. I like this type of challenge, and or it is part of the kink I have, 13%. Felt like it? Why not? 13%. So how much they disregarded. Couldn't stop myself, 9%. Seemed like the easiest option to get sex at that time. 8%. Only get horny if I have to work for it. 6%. I was afraid of being shut down again. 6%. She would reject me, so I just disregarded her rejection. I was with friends who were watching whether I could, 4%. I was with it pisses me off when women don't want or act like they don't want sex, 3%. Sorry, I should just show you.
So
It's not, we're not done.
you can go to the rest if you want.
That's what women are for. 2.5%, and I didn't care if the woman was interested or not, 2%.
the main three, the top three, right? That was horny, opportunity arose, and what was the other one?
1 second.
Trying to find the section in the document. I'm seeing it. Okay. So 1,000 said just horny. 750 said just opportunity arose, and I went for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then really determined to get what I want.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say these people were perfectly educated. Okay?
Perfectly.
And educated people on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
How much impact do you think that would have?
It can only work if they see women and their desires as worth respecting, because right now, as we can see, it clearly isn't the case.
Yeah, so is that an education issue?
Yeah, and education will have to be about women being people who deserve respect.
I'm not entirely sure if I'm convinced that's education, right?
What would you call it?
It's more of like group dynamics, I'd say. Right? Because the groups, some groups of men will typically play into this type of behavior. And I think that's what causes a lot of it, right? Because it can be like status and stuff.
But it's almost all men, as you can see here. It's not a certain group of men.
38 plus 27 plus 19. So was it like around 70%?
You're talking about these particular reasons, but it works for all of them.
Yeah, I'm focusing more on the top three.
There's no difference between the top three or the bottom three.
What do you think then?
I think as a culture, we should put effort into talking about that people are women, into sharing stories from women's perspective, because we often get stories from men's perspective instead, including about sexual violence against women. You know, in the movie It, there's a scene when there's only one girl in the group of a bunch of boys, and there is a scene when her stepfather tries to sexually assault her, and we watch this scene from the eyes of a perpetrator and not from the eyes of the victim. We, as a society, should learn to develop empathy towards women.
I think there's a hidden problem here.
What is it?
Porn, for example, right? Do you think porn increases these odds, or nothing to it?
I mean, yeah, it does say, well, they do mention a study that has shown that consumption of sexual content is correlated with being a perpetrator.
Okay. What's like the correlation? Like how strong is it?
Wait a second. Let's find it. A recent study of young people 16 to 20 found that higher sexualized media consumption was linked to stronger endorsement of the sexual double standard among boys, which were linked to higher odds of sexual coercion perpetration. We don't have the numbers.
Okay, so it's the numbers there.
It's a link to another study.
Okay, so we don't know how strong that correlation is. We just know that there is one.
Well, I can see if I can open the journal, the study.
Okay. If you want to.
This is almost 4 hours of streaming. So I want to finish soon. Conclusion. No numbers. Oh, it's an overview. Or not.
Well, I think with porn in particular, it's like extremely overwatched right now in society, right? I think it's like, if I remember, I was like watched more than like Netflix, YouTube, and some other streaming services combined, and society isn't really doing much about it. Because like the most we've done about it is like the damn age verification, which I still personally don't like too much. I guess for those sites it makes more sense, but still,
I did not understand what you mean.
which part?
The whole part of it.
Okay, so saying that porn is very popular, probably more popular than people think, in the sense that like even the most popular streaming services combined is like less viewers than porn, right? I think that as a society, we have a lot of porn addiction and like unhealthy views caused by it. And I don't think society is doing much about it yet, right? I think the most we've done so far is the age verification, which even then can be bypassed or is like personally not the approach I like, right? Because it's like a privacy concern.
You think it can solve something? Control of pornography.
I think maybe. The problem is that like as a society we really like our porn, right? Like extremely so. So you can just like rip the band-aid off on it, right? It's gonna be there for a while. It's also like men's unhealthy habit in a sense for loneliness, right? So I think this might also be due to other problems in society, the watch rates. Because if men were living healthy lives, I don't think they would fall to porn as much.
Shall we conclude today's stream? Does anyone want to add anything? I wonder if anyone stayed at this point. Okay, so I think that's it for this time. Oh, Rami, you want to add something? I got here 3 hours in, so I missed most of it and don't have anything to add. The results are that it's very sad, and men just push past a woman's no. That we should conclude the stream. Okay, so thank you for staying with me for so long, Fish. Thank you for joining and helping me discuss things. I think that's it. Goodbye, guys.
Thank you, everyone.